We're on the bottom of Peitas Amabeis.
It was less the other night than tonight.
What is how many we got on? We have Natali Liner here.
I'm here, yeah.
Well, you had somebody in your you had Eliyahu in your house last week.
Right. Yeah,
Were
it
they
was
always
the
here
other
last
night
time?
was like this.
Who
The
was in
other
your
night was
house?
like this.
Okay.
Oh, in Phoenix.
yeah.
We were saying how schwach it was over the Sunday and Monday.
I made it. I landed early.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just like this. It was just like this.
How many people are on?
8 are on Zoom.
Wow.
Yeah. It's hard after you go on vacation. It's hard to get back into it. That's why I want to read not to go on vacation.
Is it hard to get back into it at 8:30 at night? I'm saying it's hard to do it at 5 o'clock in the morning.
That's
but at
true.
8:30, even though it's not hard, by the way, if you want to do it, you do it. But whatever. But
no, it is hard. It is hard.
It's hard at 8:30 at night.
Both are hard.
You're tired from your relaxing vacation.
Okay, no problem.
No.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah. Who comes back rested from a vacation? It makes you wonder why we go on vacation.
It makes no sense.
Right? But
Parrots. Parrots on? He was relaxing.
Out of the number almost it's just about doubled.
Relaxing.
It just about doubled. We're
there
on
you
12
go.
already.
See that, David? Your mama should tzaddik. Tzaddik goes.
All I had to do is I had to give a little push for everybody.
That's right. Yeah. Anyways. Okay. Where we up to? Lema. Is that what we got up to? Oh, so yeah. So we were discussing Takonas Usha. So Takonas Usha, we were discussing a bunch of things in these dafim. But Takonas Usha was that they said, well, there were a lot of Takonas in Usha, but this is the last one that's not really in the normal regular list of Takonas Usha. But Takonas Usha was that a woman has her nefse milug, which is the property or avodim, as we'll see later in the daf, that she brings into her marriage, and basically the husband can use the peiros and it's his, but the actual keren, what's it called? We call it nefse milug, but the actual property, the principle. Thank you. I can't ever remember that word because I want to avoid principles, right? So, actual principle
comes from a dislike of the school system.
Correct. So the actual principle remains hers, and the husband gets the peiros. So she's not allowed to go sell that field. That was a Takonas Usha. She can't just go sell the field, and now the husband doesn't get the peiros. Takonas Usha was that she's not allowed to do it. So now the Gemara says about 12 lines up from the bottom. Lema Takonas Usha Tanoi. Let's say whether we meaning I don't know it's a machlokes time whether they ever did this or whether we hold of it. Whether they ever did it? Are you sure?
I think there's a couple other of the Usha Hiskinus that are machlokes whether they were instituted or not.
Yeah. Okay, but I don't know if this was that they disagree with
it. It's similar to what we had by Yeshua. Yeshua al Pikain Hisna to come into the Eretz Yisrael. We had various different Tanaim who held there were different Tanaim, for lack of a better word.
I hear. Okay, so we'll go with your pshat because I don't have pshat. So one pshat better than no pshat. So we're saying that the machlokes is whether Usha they actually were misakin this or not. The Tani Chada we learned in the Braisa, right? Eved Avdi Milug. So Avdi Milug is what we were discussing. Avdi Milug is basically an Eved. She comes, she has her own private slave. Right? She comes into the marriage with her private slave. Right? So now the husband can use the slave, but she retains, meaning whatever work the slave does, the money goes to the husband. but the slave itself is owned by the woman. So now we know the din is that by a slave, if you knock out the tooth or an eye or any of the 24 limbs, so then the slave automatically goes out free, right? So the question is, who's the owner? It's only a din by the owner. That's it. If the owner knocks out, like we've had this many times, the owner knocks out the eye or the teeth of the slave goes out free. So who's the owner here? The wife, the husband, neither, both. Right? Those are the options. 4 options. Husband, wife, meaning husband or wife, neither, both. Right? So Abdi Milug Yotze B'Shem B'Ayin L'Isha, Avaloy L'Ish. So the Tanakama holds the woman is the one that owns it, and if the man does not own it, so therefore if the man knocks out the eye, doesn't go. The Tanya Idach, and then the other bride says Lo Ish V'Lo L'Isha, not the man and not the woman, meaning nobody owns it. Right? Savrua. So then, what do we think? What's the pshat of the machlok? Savrua the kuli alma kinyan peris lav kinyan aguftam. Everybody holds that buying peris is not like kinyan aguf, meaning if you own we had this machlok 2 days ago. If you have power over the fruit, but you don't have power over the actual land, are you considered the owner or not? So everybody here holds that you're not considered the owner, which would then make the husband out, because the husband only has rights over the peiros of the eved, not the actual eved. My laba, what's the machlok? It's the mandam or the isha, the one that says that the woman knocks out the eye, and the slave will be less like takonas usha. He doesn't hold the takonas usha, and therefore the woman has the right to sell the slave if she so wants, and therefore if she knocks out, since she has the right to sell it, if she knocks out the tooth or the eye, then the eved goes free because she's in control. And the one that says not for a woman, not for a man, islay takonas usha, he holds up takonas usha, which means that the woman doesn't have control over it because she's not allowed to sell it. And the man, we said, kinyan peris is not kinyan aguf. So even though he gets the profits from the slave, but he doesn't own the slave, so neither one of them could do it. So my answer is like the kuli alma islu takonas usha. They both hold of takonas usha. Kan koydem takana, kan la'ach takana. One is before the takana, and one is after the takana. Right? The meaning to now, the Gemara is going to go through like 3 or 4 different ways of saying the machlokes. So again, one brisa was said before the takonas usha, one brisa was said after the takonas usha. That's relatively simple. They're both after the takana. So if they're after the takana, so why would you hold that the woman should be able to free it if she hits it, or knocks out the eye or the teeth? This is the takonas usha, meaning they both hold of takonas usha, and this was said after the takonas usha. The mandam that said,
Yaakov,
yeah,
it was that line that made me sure that the machlokes was whether they were misakin it or not. Because here you have, it was after it and both hold of it. That means you could potentially now have a machlokes whether that's the halacha or not.
I hear. I'm not sure because maybe they're just whether they agree with it. Okay, fine. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. So okay, but the bottom line is that they both hold the takonas usha, right? And this was both prices said after the takonas usha. So why would you hold that the woman, if she knocks out the teeth, makes the eved free? It's in his control. It's not in her control. Right? But according to Mandam, it says the isha, not the ish. My time. Why would he say that the woman will be able to free the slave by knocking out the teeth? Kedarava, Damar Rava, and we had this a couple of times. Hektish, chometz, shichrur, mafkiin, mitei shibud, knock you out of the shibud. So basically, this is what we call an apoitiki. Apoitiki is that when you take a loan from somebody, the person says, I am going to pay you back the loan with this particular thing. Right? So meaning there was a loan here, and they said this eved is going to be your payment for the loan. right? But then what happens is that the person then made the Eved into Hektish. Or it was Pesach and it became Chometz, which is also Bahana. Or, okay, you said Hektish on an Eved, but it's the same thing. The Shichur, or they freed the slave. In all those cases, Mafkiyan Midei Shibud, it's no longer going to be a Shibud, meaning these things take precedence over the apoitiki, and now there's no longer an apoitiki. That doesn't mean that the person doesn't have to pay
Maybe
back.
Hegdish is on an animal.
Yes, Hektish L'chayr is going on an animal.
You said.
Or anything. Really
Yeah.
anything. Oh,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to go on Eved. I was just using
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Hektish has to be an animal. It's only Kedushas Haguf, not Kedushas Daman.
Right,
Right.
so that's the thing, right. So Rashi points out it can't be Kedushas Daman, be Kedushas Haguf.
Right.
So anyway, but this doesn't mean that the person doesn't have to pay back the loan. About they have to pay back the loan. Just the loan is not going to be paid back from this apoitiki, because they either made it hektish or it was over chametz, or they made the Eved free. So you see that the Eved was freed, it's no longer an apoitiki. So Mamela, when this woman, the wife, knocks out the teeth, right? So now that Eved goes free. So if that's the case, it's no longer going to the husband anymore. Because basically the Eved was like an apoitiki to the husband. And now she knocks it out, so it's no longer an apoitiki. So that's why, since she has this power, so that's why she can't. That's why she's able to free it. So the Gemara asks, "Lema de Rava Tanahi." So now, why don't we say, because the other Shita obviously disagrees with this? So then, why don't we say that this whole concept that Rava said is a machlokes Tanaim? So the Gemara answers, "Like the Kuliyam is the Rava." Everybody holds of Rava that in a paitiki that becomes hektish or chametz or gets freed is no problem. Meaning it's not no problem. It's no longer used to pay back the loan. And here the Rabbanon, because of Takonas Usha, which says that the woman's not allowed to sell it, so Mamela, that puts a lot more power into the husband's side of this proposition, right? So since it gives the husband a lot more power, so therefore we say that if the husband knocks out the eye or the teeth, it's going to be freed. Okay, another third shot. Nobody holds of the Takonas Usha. Right? I don't know, here from this lashon, it sounds like they just don't hold of it. And here the whole machlokes is whether kinyan peris is kinyan aguf, which again in the first teretz we had said that everybody doesn't hold of kinyan peris kinyan aguf. Here we're saying it's a machlokes, meaning if you hold kinyan peris, the one who's in charge of the fruit, is as if he owns the entire thing. So the husband is in charge of the fruit of this slave because it's his. So Mamela, since it's his, so he's considered like the owner. So if he knocks out the eye and the teeth, or the teeth, then this Eved is going to go free. And the other Shita holds no, kinyan peris is not a kinyan aguf. Just because he has control over it doesn't mean that it's going to be that it belongs to him. Okay, fine. So then the Gemara says, and there's a similar machlokes from this machlokes Tanaim, this machlokes Tanaim that's coming at the Tanya. Let's say somebody sells an Eved to somebody else. But he wants to use the Eved for 30 days, right? Meaning he's got a big party coming up or whatever, he's got construction, and the guy says, I need to buy your slave. He says, you can buy my slave right now, but I'm using him for the next 30 days, which means that he's using the peiros, right? The slave is sold to his friend, right? It's sold to his friend, but his friend lets him use it for 30 days, right? So the mechir is not going to be chal until 30 days. So now, before we continue, there's something called, from the pasuk Yoma Yomayim, there's a special heter that if somebody kills their slave, somebody hits their slave, right? Within 30 days, I'm sorry, not within 30 days. If somebody he hit his Eved, right? And the Eved lives for 24 hours, even though it says Yom or Yomayim, 1 day or 2 days, But as long as he lives for 24 hours and then he dies, there's a special exemption that if the owner did this, he's potter. Right? Just based on this pasuk of what's the pasuk again? Achim Yom or Yemayim, right? If it lives a day or two. What Rashi says, Yemayim doesn't mean it lives 2 days. It means Yom Yemayim means it has to live not 1 day, it has to live a full 24 hours, not like daylight or something like that. Like from Shkia, from Netz to Shkia. It has to live for 24 hours. So again, there's a special din that if a master hits an Eved, and then the Eved dies after 24 hours, then he is potter from Misa. So the question here is, so now, let's say this guy who's taking control of it for 30 days hits the Eved, and the Eved lives 24 hours. Is he considered an owner? Or is he not considered an owner? If he's considered an owner, he's potter from Misa. If he's not considered an owner, then he's chayiv in Misa. Right? It's essentially the same case that we've been discussing, which is again, he no longer owns the slave. He sold it, but he retains the right to use it for those 30 days. So he owns the peiros. Right? So we're going to have a 4-way machlokes. So again, Tanya Hamaycher Avdei La'acher. Somebody sells his Eved to somebody else. So pasuk and he decides with him that he could use it for 30 days. Meaning, the whole sale is contingent on the seller being able to use the Eved for the first 30 days. So we have a 4-way machlokes. The first guy, the guy that sold it, is in the din Yom Yamayim because bottom line is the Eved's still working for him for those 30 days. Since the Eved's still working for him for those 30 days, so therefore it's considered like his. Right? Because Savar Kinyan Peiros Kinyan Aguftami. Because he holds if you have the power over the peiros, which this guy does have, because for those 30 days, whatever the Eved does is belonging to him. So therefore he holds that owning the peiros is like owning the actual Eved. Rabbi Yehuda Sheni Yeshna B'din Yomer Yemayim B'nei Shu Kaspa. Rabbi Yehuda says the second one is the one that's the owner because it says Kaspai, and since he paid already for this Eved, or he was koined already, so therefore it's considered his Eved. Because Savar Kinyan Peiros Lavka Kinyan Yigavdami, because he holds just because the seller still owns the rights of the peiros does not mean that he owns the entire thing. Okay, those are the first two. Rabbi Yossi says they both are considered owners. The seller, because it's still under his power, and the buyer, it's considered under his property because bottom line is it's his kesem. Okay, so what does he hold? He's masupik whether the kinyan peiros is kinyan guf or not. The suffix nefashis lahako, and the suffix nefashis is to be makel. That's the third shita, and the fourth shita we can figure out already what's coming. They both are not in Yom Yamayim. So if either one of them hits the Eved and the Eved dies after 24 hours, they're still going to be chayiv. Why? This one because it's not under him, meaning the buyer. And and the seller because it's no longer his kesef. So basically 4-way machlokes, right? Again, if the guy sold his Eved but retained the rights of it for 30 days, so there's only 4 options here, right? We want to know who's considered the owner. So either the guy who originally sold the slave is still the owner because he still has power over it for the first 30 days, or the guy who bought it, or neither, or both, right? That's the only 4 options. So that's what we said. So Omar, and then meaning the same machlok is there, will be in the same, huh?
If it's neither, who owns?
Nobody. I mean,
The
they own it, but they don't own it when they get to this din of Yom Yamayim that they're potter from. Somebody owns it. It's not hefker. Meaning the point is, neither one of them fits into this heter of Yom Yamayim. Right? Okay. So and then that same machlokes would apply to nechse milug that the woman brings into the marriage. So Amar Rava, my time is Rabbi Eliezer. Why does Rabbi Eliezer say it? Amar Kra ki kaspahu. It says it's his kesef. The Eved is his kesef. Kaspai hamayuchadlo. It has to be his specific. Right? Since it's not his specific, therefore it's not his, it's considered like he doesn't own it. Meaning it's nobody's specific thing. So then the Gemara asks, "Come on, who's the shita that says that if the man sells the nifsa milug, again that's the things that the woman brought into the marriage, or the woman, either one of them sells it, they didn't do anything. Who's alike? Come on, Rabbi Eliezer. It's like Rabbi Eliezer who holds that neither one of them has any sort of ownership. Okay, then they were asked, so somebody is a half a Eved, half a Menchayr, means he has two owners. Well, he only has one, well, he owns himself, and the other half of him is owned by the other owner. An Eved that's owned by two buyers, two owners, they don't go out with the heads of the Evarim that will never come back, right? Which normally they go free for, right? That's the 24 limbs, right? Oh, how come the Gemara here stops using the lashon of he knocked out its teeth or knocked out its ear? I have no idea, but it's the same din. It's the same din. There's 24. Right? I think the Gemara in Kedushin asks maybe there's more than 24, but whatever it is, there's 24 limbs. The Gemara usually just refers to them as Shein V'ayin, but here the Gemara decides to tell us that it's all of them. But anyways, how do you know that if there's no sole ownership, you don't get this kula of that if the slave dies after 24 hours, that you're chayiv, right? So Amar Alei Rav Mordechai Rav Ashi Hachi Yamar Mishmei the Rav Eliezer is Rav Eliezer. Milo Yamar Rav Eliezer Kaspa Ham Yuchadloi. Didn't he say that it has to be kesef that's meyuchad for him? Hachanami Avdoi Ham Yuchadloi. It has to be the eved that's meyuchad. Meaning, anytime you darshan with a vav at the end, it means that it has to be meyuchad, right? So yeah, so the Maskonas Hadavarim comes out that we have machlokes about exactly who has power over the nifsa milug or not, whether it can be sold or not. And it all ties into Kinyan Peres, Kinyan Guftami, or Takanas Usha, or both. And okay. A very interesting Mishnah, this Mishnah. A long Mishnah, but it's interesting. Hatakeya, I'm not saying the other ones are not interesting. This one is interesting. Hatakeya l'chaveru, somebody blows into his friend, which Rashi says means he hit him on his ear. That's what Rashi's Rebbe said. Or another one says Hatakeya means he blew. Right? Meaning he actually did damage. He caused his friend to go deaf. Bottom line is, right? So he has to give him a selah. Why? Because of embarrassment. This whole mission is about busha. He has to give him a selah because of busha. He has to give a mana. What?
It's not a lot of money.
Not a lot of money. Yeah.
There's a lot of busha.
This is just for busha. There's
a lot
other
of
payments
busha.
you have to make also.
A lot of busha being deaf. All of a sudden one day.
Hmm?
There's a lot of busha being deaf.
Well, the point is that here we're talking about making him deaf, and you seemingly didn't do any other physical damage like we had before, right? That by making a father deaf, would there be a chiyuv misa? Huh? Even though we said that if you make somebody deaf, there'll be some internal bleeding.
The busha is for the payment of busha is for the action of making him deaf,
Right?
not for the fact that he's deaf for the rest of his life. That has no bearing. That's a grum. It's the act.
Okay.
Right. It's meaning. So it's really not that they became deaf. It's really the slap in the ear or the blowing in the ear or whatever it is. Right.
Yeah, you can imagine, according to the Rashi's own pshat, Takei Mamish, that could be quite embarrassing. Walk up to someone in the street, grab his ear, and you blow into it with all your might, enough to deafen him. It's quite a scene.
Right. I hear that. Yeah. So anyway, so it's the busha, right? He's right, Keshin. It's the busha of the mice, right? because otherwise it would be our good old famous friend, what we call a grama, right? So review the Omer, Mishum Riyazeglili Mana, a Mana. Fine. Satru, if he smacked him in the face, right? Nice and lame sciences, then he has to pay 200 zuz. So that's obviously a lot more embarrassing. La'acha yada, if he hit him with the back of his hand, for whatever reason, that's more embarrassing. Nice and like arba meyazuz, he gives 300 zuz. So tzaram ba'aznai, if he pulled his ear, right? That's what Rashi says. He pulled him. Yeah. Talash b'saira, he pulled his hair. Rokak v'giya by roika, he spit at him, and the spit hit him. Right. Hever talisa mimenu, or he took off his talis from him. Right. Meaning doesn't even mean he got him naked. It means he just yanked off his jacket. Para roish isha b'shuk, or if he uncovered a woman's hair in the street. Nice and like arba meya zuz, you give 400 zuz. Yeah, on top of base, klal. We're gonna have to see in the Gemara exactly what's going on here, right? Everything goes according to the covet of the person, meaning the more chush of the person, the more kusha you have to pay. The less chush of a person, the less you have to pay. I'm Rebbe Kiva.
Do they have some special meter to figure how? I know I have a meter over here that tells me how covered I am. It tells me how heavy I am.
The chashuv meter.
There's a chashuv meter. How chashuv you think you are, or you got to get the etiquette people from the New York Times, and they tell you like how much each person is worth.
The tuition committee figures out how much you're worth. Yeah.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah,
there's a reason why there's like they needed Reb Nachman, the Mumchim B'Dayanim to shot this up. You couldn't have a person come up with this. You needed the top people for such chiyuvim. You needed the top dayanim.
Correct. That's true.
The Gemara said that you didn't have committees. These were people they were making the das b'nei adam. These were not stam people. They were the people that were paskening on busha were top dayanim. That's why they didn't allow it stam to be paskened on years later. You need people that were able to get smicha and were like Reb Nachman.
And Hanami, you're right. You have to decide. Well, I don't know. Meaning,
that's what the Gemara said before about they couldn't paskin on these things after
Right, but could it be that they handed off clear guidelines?
The Gemara says certain like specific amounts, but to actually go to the Eimek Adas B'nai Adam and to be able to figure out what people were worth or when it came to this stuff, I don't think it was stam guidelines. It was every single person that called it. You really had to be a person that was holding.
That's right. It's a Heintika Parsha. It's a Parsha.
I don't think any Rabbanim nowadays would be able to do that.
Even with these set amounts are not set. There's a machlokes rishonim whether these set amounts are a minimum or a maximum. But no one holds their set amounts. So even after these amounts, you still have to shots up exactly how much is the Pichavoide. That's what the Mishnah is saying. Exactly.
Right, but I'm saying, who? Yeah. Is it considered a psak? It's not a knas, right?
Which Oishas is a knas.
It's always a knas.
Yeah.
Did we say that?
Yeah.
We had that Gemara.
Rashi said the Rambam says it
was referring to that Gemara. That Kiva. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah. That's what he's referring to. That Gemara, Reb Nachman.
Yeah. I'm saying the Mishnayos are talking about Dayanim from the Sanhedrin, but even in Amoraim's times it wasn't such a simple concept to be able to come up with these ideas. Reb Nachman held himself to that person that could do that, but B'dar Klal he held most people were not on his level when it came to that. Being able to paskin on monistic shilos like these.
Right. I hear. I don't know. So anyway, so I'm a Rebbe Kiva, right? Afilu aniyim should be Yisrael. He disagrees. So we had this few blot ago. Even aniyim Yisrael, Ryan Nazim Ki'ilu Haim B'nei Chayrin. We look at them as if they're B'nei Chayrin, Sheyardu Min Nefseyim, that they lost all their money. Shehem B'nei Avram Yitzchak V'Yaakov. They're B'nei Avram Yitzchak V'Yaakov. So according to Rabbi Kiva, it's not on a scale. It's just a set amount. So, like Akiva was saying, I don't know exactly who decided, when they decided, etc., but at some point there must have been some sort of decision based on this. Fine. There was a story that a guy uncovered a woman's hair in the shuk, in the street. So now he's going to pay 400, like the Mishnah said before. It's such a busha. You have to pay a 400 zuz. Amar le Rebbe, 10 lizman. Give me some time to pay it back. Benasan lizman, and Rebbe Kiva gave him time. Shomra, he saw, he was watching her, that she was standing at the doorway of her chatzah. And then he broke a jug in front of her, and there was a isser's worth of oil in there. Right? Gil says Raisha. So what she do? She immediately uncovered her hair, and mitapachas. I'm sorry, manachas yad al Raisha. She would make her hand wet with the oil and put it in her hair. I guess that was, she saw an opportunity to do something, do some beauty thing with her hair. But the bottom line is, she uncovered her hair in the public. Hamid Alea Aiden, and this guy set this whole thing up, and he had witnesses there. And he came from Rakiva. Amrale, he says, did this lady have to get 400 zuz? Look, she just uncovered her hair right there in front of everybody. Right? So why should I do it? Right? So Amrale, so he said, Rabbi Kiva said, Loy Amr Klum, you said nothing. Meaning what you did here is meaningless, and you still have to pay the 400. Right? So now there is an Indian here. So what did he do? He went to the doorway of her chutzah. Right? Why couldn't he just go into her house and do this?
Have to be outside in public.
What?
Have to be outside.
Her house is, if he's there, it's public. Or why not do it in the chutzah?
This is a riot. We had a machlokes a few days ago about a shaita embarrassing himself, other embarrassing him back.
That's what the sugya is, that she embarrassed herself. So the point is that, I don't know, but the point I'm trying to make is that there is a shita that says that a woman is allowed to have her hair uncovered in her house and even in her yard. So I think this maybe is a riot.
We had it.
No, I'm talking about this. Yeah, but there are those that paskin like it. So Seifer brings it, right?
I mean, anything beyond that is a chumrah. That was the maskana of the Gemara, was Rabbi Yochanan.
Yeah, but that's not the psak that we go with. Me'ikar adin, yes.
Okay, Me'ikar adin, that's the psak Allah.
Me'ikar adin is that if she's in a chutzner, meaning this thing that a woman only has to cover her hair, is outside in the public. So that's why I'm wondering if this is a diak to that. Because he made her come to the Pesach HaChotzer, right? Because if it would have happened in the Chotzer, she can uncover her hair. It would be no taina. Anyways, so Rabbi Kiva didn't like this, so we'll see in the Gemara why it is he felt that this guy's whole plan was worthless. Fine. Right? So somebody who cuts himself, even though he's not allowed to do it, potter, he is potter. Meaning, so he's not allowed to hurt himself, but if he did, he's potter. But if somebody else is chayvel them, they're chayiv. Right? Which sounds weird. Like if this guy himself is cutting himself or beating himself up, so then why should I be chayiv if I beat him up? He doesn't care about himself. So, okay, but we'll see in the Gemara why that is. So somebody in the beginning of the daf texted me something. He was texting to somebody else, but he was taking it to a different guy, and it came to me. But there's all sorts of chuvas, right? Are you allowed to damage yourself? Right? And another guy asked me today. I wasn't sure what he was getting at. Are you allowed to give blood? Are you allowed to sell blood? You have a rare blood type, so are you allowed to sell it? Can you donate a kidney?
Good.
But to sell it, not to donate. To donate to save somebody's life is a different story. You don't want to save somebody, you want to make good money. So
But it's Yaakov, they bloodlet back in the day. It's not, and that was they're just throwing out blood.
right, but here the bloodlet for your health is fine. Here you're not doing it for your health. Here you're doing it strictly for financial purposes.
But if it's not going to hurt you, l'may nafkamina.
Right, so enochanamis, but there's making a hole in your skin.
Achastim kamalav shiseichen.
Yeah. Ramesha holds, why can't you take an IV before Yom Kippur? Right? So Ramesha holds, because it's one of the things Ramesha says, it's chavala. Better, meaning he basically says, if you think you're going to, he's talking about even if you think you're going to have to break your fast on Yom Kippur, he says, better to break your fast, obviously with shiurim, than to cut yourself with an IV. Right? Because you're not allowed to be chayil on yourself.
On Yom Kippur or every Yom Kippur?
No, not on Yom Kippur. Not on Yom Kippur, you might as well just eat.
But every Yom Kippur is
You do an IV on Erev Yom Kippur.
How do you take a shot then?
A shot is a medical necessity.
Because it's not a medical. Oh, because it's going to be a medical necessity.
It's not a medical necessity.
You could
It's to avoid it. Yeah, you could eat. Not everybody agrees with him. That was his chiddush. Anyways, va'koitzes nitiyotso, afal pisha enu rishai potter acherim chayovin. Now this is also a fascinating line right here. If you cut down trees, even though you're not allowed to cut down your trees, but you're still potter. But if somebody else cuts down your tree, you're chayiv. Right? Now, if you ask the whole world if you're allowed to cut down a fruit tree, they're going to tell you, Avadanat, it's Rav Yehuda Chassid. Rav Yehuda Chassid said you're not allowed to cut down a fruit tree. Right? And it's not Rav Yehuda Chassid, it's an Issa Daraisa to cut down a fruit tree. Right? So nobody knows that. They know because Rav Yehuda Chassid, EBGB, what's going to happen if you cut down a fruit tree. Right? So what's a pshat? So the pshat is that if you have a tzarich to cut down the fruit tree, you're allowed to cut it down. Comes along Rabbi Yehuda Chassid and says you still shouldn't cut it down. Right? But me'ikar adin, you're not stam allowed to go to a fruit tree and cut it down, having nothing to do with Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. Right? Yeah. But anyway, see them are very much. As Altzbal Tashchis, right? You're destroying things for no good reason. But you have a good reason, then you're allowed to.
And before you said you said Ma'aseh Be'echad is part of Rosh B'Shnuk. Remember?
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And there's a Basel named Rabbi Akiva. She came to Rabbi Akiva. Ba'as means she came to Rabbi Akiva.
She can't. Well, he's not going to come.
Right. I don't know. Just that's what I heard you say.
Like as Taicha as he came.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
They both came. I don't know. The truth is, you're right. I don't know why it says bus.
No, the first time she came because she wanted the baishas.
Yeah.
The second time he came because he wanted to.
He wanted to get back on it.
Right, but he had to have gone the first time too. You can't be mechayiv somebody something in Bezin unless both parties are there. So I don't know what. I guess she initiated, so that's why she came. That's what it is. Okay. So Yiboilahu. They had a shayla. Mana Tsuri Tanan. What type of mana is it? Is it mana Tsuri? Or mana Medina Tanan? Or is it mana Medina? Right, we had this before, I just don't remember where. That because if you hold the
Ma'aseh Sheni, we have it by Ma'aseh Sheni, maybe.
No, we had it somewhere in I think in Ksubis with the
So Shiloh is the Raisa the Rabbanon. It's you know
correct. And when we go with Monatsuri, when we're going, bottom line is Mana Medina. Yeah. Right. So the bottom line is Mana Medina is a whole lot less than Monatsuri. So the shaila is how much does he have to pay? Is it a Monatsuri, Mana Medina? Tashmad who gavra to takale lechavre. There was this guy that either blew a tekiah into his friend's ear or he hit his friend's ear. Also, look at the Yehuda Nasiya Amarle Ha'ana Ha'Rav Yosef Haglili. He says, here I am, and here's Rav Yosef Haglili. Havle Monatsuri, you have to give him the more expensive mana, the Monatsuri. Shmamina Monatsuri Tanan. So therefore, we're referring to Monatsuri Shmamina. Then the one says, what is this business of Ha'ana Ha'Rav Yosef Haglili? What is this that this is me and this is Rav Yosef Haglili? If you say this is what he's saying, here I am that I saw you blow the guy into the guy's ear. But Rav Yosef Haglili Dama Monatsuri, and here we have Rav Yosef Haglili who says, give him a Monatsuri, Zil Havle Monatsuri. So now you have to go give him Monatsuri. Right, so basically he's just repeating what went on. Right? The only question is, so how can they paskin that if there's only one dayan? You need at least three. So it must be it was a mumcha. Anyways, the Gemara says Lamemra the aid nasa dayan. So what are you saying here? That an aid can become a dayan? Because he was an aid to the thing. The right, Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Right? But how can that be? Vatanya Sanhedrin Shiro Echad Shorag Zanefesh. So Sanhedrin, the Sanhedrin was sitting there, and some really dumb guy decides to kill somebody in front of the Sanhedrin. Right? Well, I don't know. So he does this in front of the Sanhedrin. Right? Miktsas and Nasu Eidim. So how do you do this? So some of the Sanhedrin become the Eidim, and Miktsas and Nasu Dayanim, and some of them become Dayanim, Divrei Tarfin. Rabbi Kiva Aimer Kulam Eidim, they're all Eidim, because they can't be Dayanim because they all saw it. Bein Eid Nasa Dayan, and the Eid can't become a Dayan. Okay, so Adkan like on Reb Tarfon Ela the Miktsas and Nasu Eidim, Miktsas and Nasu Dayanim. Right? Reb Tarfon only said it because some of them were Eidim and some of them Dayanim. Right? Meaning, as long as they act, even though they all saw it, Reb Tarfon is saying, as long as some of them take on the role of the Eidim and some of them take on the role of the Dayanim, that's enough, right? That the Rebbe Kiva holds no. Once you see it, you can't be a Dayan. Reb Tarfon says no. It depends how you approach it in Bezdin. You can either come in as an aid or a Dayan. You can't do both, but you are allowed to be an aid or a Dayan. Aval aid nasa Dayan like Ha'amar. But he didn't say that an aid could become a dayan, meaning Reb Tarfon also agrees that once the guy comes in as an aid, he can't switch over to be a dayan, right? So here we're saying that he was an aid, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and then he became a dayan. I'm sorry, Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. He saw it, and then he became a dayan. I mean, he passed in the deal. So then how could he do that? So when that's a Kitanya, he could go in Shiro Balayla. That's somewhere where they saw it at night. You're not allowed to paskin din at night, right? Meaning Reb Tarfon, Batson would hold that he does hold that an aid can become a dayan. That's what he holds. An aid can become a dayan, right? But in this case, it's talking about where it was at night. Which so Mamela, they couldn't paskin it at all at night. Yeah? Okay.
See, yeah, but how would he be able to be Mechayev without another aid anyways? He's only one aid.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. Was he hooking up with Rabbi Yossi Aglili? I don't know.
Rabbi Yossi Aglili.
He really only was going with Rabbi Yossi Aglili's psak, according to this.
Right,
psak.
that's the Gemara says.
Right.
So he could be Mechayev. I mean, maybe he can be Mechayev, Shvua, but make he be Mechayev money, actually.
Doesn't say that he was the only aid. I'm trying to figure out what ha'ana means. Could it mean that he was an aid, not the aid? It's also the Kamed Rabbi Yehuda. The guy didn't even know that Rabbi Yehuda was there.
Right.
I don't know. It seems like he's doing everything here because he's a Dayan Mulcha.
Right, it has to be Akira that there was another aid. Right, it has to be. So you're right. But anyways, so again, so what happened that night? So since the whole thing happened that night, none of them could become Dayanim. So during the day, we say some are Eidim, some are Dayanim. But if it happened during the day, then all of them become Dayanim and finished, and we'll be okay. That's one pshat. Or we have a totally different pshat. This is what Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya said. Ha'ana, the spiritually Rabbi Yossi Aglili. I go Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Damar Manatsuri, that it's a Manatsuri. Sadi the Masadi Bach. And we have witnesses here. Zil Havle Manatsuri. Since give him a Manatsuri. Since me and Rabbi Yossi Aglili hold it's a Manatsuri. And we have witnesses standing here. So Mela, you're stuck and you have to pay. Someone asked, Rabbi Kiva, the ain't aid nasa dayan. Does Rabbi Kiva really hold the aid doesn't become a dayan? But Tanya, vehika ishes re'el be'evan avegra. If a person hits his friend with a stone or with his fist, Shimon hatimni, with Teimani Omer, ma egref meyuchad shemasale dulaid, and just like a fist is meyuchad that it goes to it's handed over to the Eidah, meaning to the Bezdin, Ula Eidim into the Eidim. Right? Meaning you can see the guy has to be in court, right? He has to be in Bezdin in order to be tried. So the Bezdin can say, let's look at his hand and see if that hand could do that much damage or something like that. That's so, meaning you can only bring it in Bezdin if they could judge it. It comes to exclude if the thing that the rock, let's say, is not by the Eidim. Meaning, according to Shimon Money, the how do you call it in Clue? What's it? The board game Clue. What is it? It was the
butler.
The butler, but what's the weapon? The weapon, right? Which weapon was used? Right. So the weapon has to be in Bezdin. According to Shimon Money, the weapon has to be in Bezdin. Otherwise, you can't pass it. Amar Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva said to him, "How could that be? Bezdin hiko? Did he hit the guy in front of Bezdin? Sheyoidin kam hiko, to know how much he hit him, right? Meaning how many times he hit him. Ba'alma hiko, and where on the body he hit him. And malshoiko, was it on his calf or his thigh, whichever? We're not going down that road, right? Oy tzipur nafshay, or on his heart, right, the edge of his heart. If somebody pushed his friend off a roof, or from a big building, who makes and he dies. Bezdin Holchan Eitzel Bira. Does Bezdin go to look at the building to see if the building was high enough that the death could have possibly happened from there? Or do you bring the whole Bira to Bezdin? If let's say the building fell down already, do we have to rebuild it in order to reenact the scene in order to make sure that this guy's chayiv? We don't do that. Meaning Bezdin doesn't take a field trip to every single case of death to see if it's possible for the death to happen in that way. Elama egroif. So what are you dashing for the pasuk of egroif? Elama egroif miyuchachu masal le'edim. So an egroif is masal to the edim. The edim could check it out. Av kol shu masal le'edim. So things, everything else also is only if it's masal le'edim. Right? If it comes to exclude where the weapon was lost from the guy that got hit, meaning the Haidim never even got to see what the guy hit him with. In that case, then he's putter. So Bekiva's learning that the Haidim have to have seen the weapon, Bezdin does not. Whatever. So what's the kasha? Katani miyas. Bezdin hiko. Did he hit him in front of Bezdin? Sheyoidin kama hiko. Hoiko b'fneim. It's mashma. Meaning, he says to them in this kasha, Rabbi Akiva said, does every case happen in front of Bezdin? That Bezdin examines the whole case? Mashma, that if it did happen in front of Bezdin, you'd be able to be mechayev. So you see Eid Nasadayim, even according to Rabbi Akiva, and the previous price that Rabbi Akiva does not hold of Eid Nasadayim. So Gemara answers, L'dvar of the Rabbi Shimon hatem nekamar v'lei lo svirulei. It's going according. Rabbi Akiva saying it according to you, then Bezdin would, if every case would have to happen in Bezdin. But really, Avada Rabbi Akiva holds that if a case happened in front of Bezdin, you would not try that. You would not try that.
It's the same Rabbi Akiva who said, something like that. And he said in Maklev, he said, I would have been part of the Sanhedrin. I would. No, nobody would ever get killed. Where it said the if the Harag Shiva, or if the Shiva was the base in his Havlan, I forgot the word. It's a murderous Bezdin. But Rabbi Akiva said if he was part of the Bezdin, this is the same Rabbi Akiva. So you see, he's trying to find the heta that you'll never be mechayev him. So,
right. I hear. That's a good sushta, Rachman. I like it. Okay, we'll stop over here. All right, kill him.